All right. Well, we've been doing some thinking recently. Uh, we've made a couple changes to how we do the podcast, and we've started coming up with challenges that we find pretty interesting, and we want to talk a little bit about that and what we plan to do moving forward. And
Yeah, I've been in a little bit of a. This seems to be almost seasonal, but I'll get into kind of existential mode of what is the point of us? What do we want to do? Not even me as an individual, but us and the show, and what are we after? What's been working, what hasn't? And I think the most successful thing that we have done so far has been these challenges. So challenge, the way this has mostly worked is one of us or someone else has said, hey, the next couple months we're doing pull-ups, and we've had a cooperative Google sheet where we just have our names and say, okay, I did this many pull-ups this day and this many that day, and it's straightforward. And it's
well, okay. Well, last week we announced that we were going to wake up at the same time every day for the
mm,
rest of February. Before that, we did the meditation challenge, or we did that, and then we also did the Pomodoro challenge. So
mhm.
we've done quite a few challenges, but we've done even more that we didn't really talk about in our Discord with a real small group.
Yeah,
So we've had maybe 7 or 8 challenges that have been really fun, even if they're really simple. They've been really fun.
yeah, it feels like one of the best things that we've hit on in our podcast run so far. And we've been okay, so we've been trying to figure out going forward, what do we what do we want to focus more on? We have a theme for the season, which is motivation, and I'm very happy about that. But there's a little more to the question than that, which is how do we want to go about some of this stuff? I've spent a ridiculous amount of time listening to podcasts like Andrew Huberman and Dr. K and some other things. And there's a part of me that's like, man, Andrew Huberman is great. Like, what's the point of us when there's a neuroscience professor out there talking about, here's the neuroscience of how you optimize your dopamine and how you do this and that. Like, what do we do? I don't have a PhD in neuroscience, and neither do you. I think what I want to be is I want to be right in between somebody like Andrew Huberman or Anders Ericsson, or like a theorist in a sense. These people that are able to uh, speak from a position of authority and primary research, and say, oh, my good buddy, this other world-renowned Nobel Prize winning doctor, he told me that your brain works this way. Like, we're not there, right? I want to be somewhere in between that and the practitioner, the the high performance athlete or engineer or anything, the person who's really good at something. I want to be kind of in between, where I'm not looking to try and become the best in the world at something, and I'm also not looking to do primary research of, hey, let's run an RCT and experiment on people and try to figure out what's the core behavioral aspect of learning something or whatever. I want to take some of the ideas, or as many as we can get our hands on, really, take ideas from these theorists and just try them, and try and figure out, how does it work? How do they fit into my life and uh, pursuing a goal or anything like that? Like, we've talked about this a ton, right? But I've been trying to get into the top 200 players in StarCraft, right? Become a grandmaster at this game, which I did. And that has been so revealing for so many of these things. I'll hear something from a theorist like, hey, like Anders Ericsson in Peak. Well, we observed that people practice, or the really high performing people have two dedicated practice sessions per day usually, where they practice in the morning, they practice in the evening, and they're super focused. And I'm kind of thinking, cool, that's got to be the secret, right? I got to have two practice sessions a day where I'm really focused in both of them. And I actually tried that, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like you said, the way you build a rocket is to throw hot gas out the back of it. And yeah, that's true, but there's a lot more to it than that. I'll put it that way. That's just something that I've felt by doing it firsthand, is just trying it and experiencing it and going, okay, yeah, focus is a really key component, but there's like a million other little things that happen here. That's been incredibly rewarding and enjoyable to me, and that's kind of what I want to do. That's I think where we want to sit is between taking these sort of high level ideas that come out of science and this sort of controlled observation, and do them in a way where we can try and figure out what is the nuance of that. How does this help us? Is it overhyped? Is there more to it? That's where I want to be. I don't know. What do you think?
Right. Well, I've tried to improve at things in my life, like becoming a better artist or musician, or get more fit or whatever. And you listen to people like Andrew Huberman. There's tons of others. I've read books on this stuff.
Yeah.
And you start to get the feeling that the people giving you this information are really, really smart, because they talk about, they have terms like suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus and the frontal lobe. And, they just start rattling off all of these scientific terms. And you, while reading that or hearing that, think to yourself, wow, this is some really smart stuff. After I read this, I'm going to be super smart. Go ahead.
And I just want to interject. I heard this referred to, I can't remember what it's for, but there's a doctor talking about the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And my initial reaction was, wow, that's quite a thing. And this person must really know what they're talking about. But then if you actually learn what those things mean, it just means like they just name brain locations by where they are. So it's
Right.
top, side, front of the front thing, cortex. Like it's just, that's it.
Right. And then,
Anyway, go ahead.
well, yeah, that's what happens. I'll listen to something like that, and I'm just, wow, these people are so smart. After I hear this, I'm going to be super smart. And then, maybe for the rest of the day or the week, you feel really motivated to do stuff because you feel smarter, but then it turns into nothing because suprachiasmatic nucleus doesn't really mean anything to you or your current life or anything at all.
Yeah.
Not that that stuff isn't interesting and helpful, but it just very rarely translates from the super smart scientist people into the normal guy that I am. It's hard to make that connection. So I want to be the person that's trying to take what these people are actually saying and put it into practice. Not that that makes me super original. I feel like everybody's trying to do that. But I just want to keep talking about it and keep trying to take those really complicated things and turn them into simple, understandable, usable terms and actions that actually make sense.
To me, it's almost like, to oversimplify a bit, Einstein figured out that, hey, energy and matter, they're kind of the same thing. You could convert matter into energy, and E equals mc squared, and if you split the atom, you get energy out of it. And like we wind up with this theory of, holy crap, if you split an atom, you get a ton of energy out of it. But to turn that into, unfortunately, a nuclear bomb, or in a more positive sense, nuclear power, it took millions of person hours to do the engineering to figure out okay, yeah, so what if you split it atom, you get energy? How do you do that? How do you actually capture it in a way that's useful and turn it into a thing? That's kind of how I feel about it. When I hear something about deep focus or ultradian cycles or anything, it's kind of like, okay, that's a awesome fundamental concept. I don't even mean to make it seem like I'm being
Right.
dismissive. It's actually super exciting to think, oh, here's a framework we could start thinking about this stuff in. But there's a million miles between that and actually getting it worked into your life in a meaningful way where you feel a real effect. That isn't just the initial, oh, I'm really excited about a new idea effect, which happens all the time. How do you improve yourself a year after the fact? Or what is all the subtle nuance of this big idea?
Right. So I think that's what's beginning to happen with these little challenges that we started doing. We're able to take just this tiny little concept, like the first one we did, do pull-ups every single day for, what was it, 90 days?
Yeah, it was long.
And if if you weren't in the Discord, we set up a Google Doc and we would track every single day. So you put in your number of pull-ups you did that day, and you can see everyone else's, and it was really fun. And just doing that very simple thing brought up a lot of cool, interesting concepts. And it's been that way for all of the challenges. So I want to keep doing things like that.
Yeah, I think in terms of the rubber meets the road thing, I think you and I are both thinking that that's the most promising direction to go, I guess, is we can think about theory all we want, we can talk about it all we want, which is great, but at the end of the day, what is the actual thing that we're going to do to try and there's a few reasons to try and do something like that, right? We kind of identified this before. There's really three purposes for that. There's challenge, experiment, and new habit, right? So the challenge part is push yourself in a new direction, kind of raise your threshold a little bit, do something new in a way that evolves you in some way, in a short temporary form. There's the experiment, which is do a thing religiously to find out what happens, see if something changes for you, like the don't use your phone challenge, which is calling it a challenge, really it's an experiment. And then there's the new habit, where it's okay, let's do a new thing and try to get it built into your life to where it stays, where this is just a new thing that you do. And that is what happened for me with the pull-up thing. I still do pull-ups every day, and that's been fantastic. But that seems to be the effective way to do it.
Also, a huge factor in all of this, like if you take the Pomodoro challenge, I mean, we just did Pomodoro religiously, not like we didn't do it before, but because we decided to do it together and then talk about it, you begin to pay a lot closer attention to what's actually going on, what's happening in your brain, what type of progress are you making in your work, and how is it actually affecting your life. And you get that prepared because you're going to talk about it and think about it and review it. And that has been such a cool part of this. And seeing other people do these things too, they begin to mention, I mean, people that are totally different from me. They're not artists or anything like that. Totally different fields. And they have the same thoughts and the same feelings towards these little challenges or experiments that we do. And it's really cool to start seeing these patterns rise up. And then once the challenge is over or the experiment is over, you see that in your life from then on. You learn a lot from doing this. So doing it together has been a huge aspect of this.
Yeah. So what do you think it is about? There does seem to be something pretty striking. You feel it almost immediately when you go from thinking, I'm going to try and get up on time, for a while, versus, okay, I'm going to state publicly that I'm going to try and get up on time, and I'm going to show everyone every day what time I actually got up, and I'm going to see when they're getting up. I mean, there's clearly something going on there, and the moment you switch that line of thinking, it almost immediately feels very different to you. And the chance of success rises so dramatically when you switch into that second mode of, okay, this isn't just this private thing that I've got in my head. It's something that is like public and happening and very deliberate. What do you think it is that makes the difference for you?
I don't know exactly. And, it could be as simple as, oh, I care what people think, but I think it's a lot more complicated than that. We're talking about the sleep challenge, which was wake up at the same time every day for the rest of February, which sounds really easy. And maybe depending on the time that you chose for yourself, it could be easier. I chose, yeah, and we're going to do an episode on this. I don't want to talk about it too much, but this has been the most exciting, interesting, and most challenging one for me. You'd think it'd be easy. It's extremely difficult.
You also chose
5:30. Yeah.
Good call.
But yeah, and it's tough. But I've done it every single day since, and I really want to keep that up. And it's really changing things, or I'm beginning to see some really interesting stuff, but I don't want to talk too much about that. What is it about signing up for a challenge that makes you pull it together and actually do it? I don't really know, but there's this weird magical thing that happens. It's definitely a real thing, but I don't know exactly what causes it.
I've got a few ideas on it, a few different pieces. There's a friend of mine. I talked to him. He was having a hard time with life, basically. Just wasn't healthy, wasn't emotionally in a great place, just having a lot of trouble. And he decided to join the army, and he mostly wanted to go to boot camp, which to me sounds like, ugh, that doesn't sound fun. But he was really excited about that in a way, because in his mind, and I kind of get this now, it's like once you're there, you're there. You get up when you're told to get up. You do what you are told to do. And that sounds, it in a weird way, it's like he wanted to be fitter, but he couldn't do it. And so he's still going to have to do all those things in boot camp. You're still going to be forced to go for a run, and, you have to eat. You eat what you're given. You don't get to eat poorly because you just don't have anything else. But something about that was just so comforting to him, of once I'm there, I'm there. There's no more choices to make. It's like the trying to get it figured out every day is gone.
The choices thing is probably a huge factor. When you do something by yourself, you almost question it every single day based on feelings, emotions, or whatever. You just sort of reassess the situation every single day, because it doesn't matter if you don't do it. If you don't feel like it, you just won't do it anymore. But when you sign up for something, and when other people are doing it, you have decided at the beginning, you've made a decision for that length of time, and you never question whether or not you should do it.
Right.
It becomes whether or not you can do it, or how do you do it. So the decision part of it is major, I think.
We're about a week into the wake up at the time you chose challenge, right? And for the first few days, 3 or 4 days, I was feeling that way at the very beginning. Like, cool, tomorrow I'm starting this challenge. I am going to get my sleep schedule sorted out. And then I kind of woke up on time, not quite. And then the next day I was up really late because of whatever reason. I wasn't feeling good. And I'm like, I gotta sleep in a little bit. And every morning I'd kind of feel a little bit of guilt and think, I'm like almost there, but not quite. And I'm just struggling with it. And then last night it hit me. This isn't the wake up on time if you can manage it challenge, or the, do your best. It's the wake the up challenge.
Right.
I picked 8:15 I get up at 8:15. It doesn't matter. That's the point. The point is that this month, that's just what happens. So I set an alarm on my watch for 8:15, and then I set an alarm on my phone for 8:16, and that's by the door. So my watch goes off and I can get up peacefully and go walk to the door and turn it off if I want, or I can lay there and have my phone alarm go off and wake me up and force me to get out of bed and wake up my wife who's next to me, and she's going to be pissed. Like, that's the stakes. So I just have to get up. And this morning I got up at 8:15 because I have to. That's just, I set it up that way. And because I knew that I had to, it's not an optional thing. I don't get to evaluate anymore. The night before, I'm thinking, I gotta go to bed because I gotta get up at 8:15. Like, just removing the choice of it, making the choice at the beginning and saying, okay, this is a thing that I think is worth doing. I want to do it. And then just in every possible way, trying to remove the decision making from the rest of that is, in a strange, weird way, it feels like going to boot camp, where you just think, it doesn't matter. I gotta run 3 miles every morning or whatever they make you do. That's what happens. And it's comforting in a weird way. And I had a much easier time getting to bed because I'm just thinking, this is just what I gotta do. I can't reason my way out of it. That's just what I'm doing.
I'm also realizing how this applies to everything else. It's not just isolated to silly challenges and experiments. It's everything. Anything that I've accomplished in my life has been this specific thing that I absolutely decided I had to do, and I was going to do it no matter what. And somehow you accomplish it because you stop questioning it over and over again. It's just constantly getting proven by doing this.
Yeah, there really is something kind of magical about it. And I think back to this idea of, okay, what are we? What is our job? What are Mike and Dan trying to do in the world with this podcast, this show? That's, I think, where I see us sitting is, let's talk about and analyze and consider all the high level theory that we can find. He said, I listened to tons of Andrew Huberman and I love it and I think he's amazing. But there's this huge gap between, okay, what does that actually do? And I think that there's a lot that's kind of missing of the nuance of that. Of just because you say you got to focus really hard for an hour and a half every day doesn't really tell you the 1,000 things that are involved. What is focus? What do you focus on? Should you ever stop? There's just so many little questions there that I want to work on and figure out. But this seems like the most direct and effective way that we found so far of trying to do some of these things, which is, okay, Pomodoro, right? It's supposed to be this great technique and has all these benefits. Let's do that religiously for a week. And we could have even done a longer challenge. Maybe we will in the future. If only work under the confines of Pomodoro for a week and see what happens. And it doesn't matter if you don't feel like it today, or you're not in the right environment or whatever. It's a challenge. It's not, you aren't making choices. You committed to this, so you do it. And that has been such an effective way of really getting into, okay, what does it do? How does it work? How does this actually play out in my real life over the course of a long period of time?
Right. And just in case this needs restating, both of us just want to be better at whatever we do. We both have different interests and they're always sort of changing, but we just want to be better at stuff. Well, and so all of this stuff, all of these concepts apply to what we're doing and somehow cross over at the same time.
And the word better is it's not just, oh, I want to be a faster guitar player, or I want to be higher ranked in StarCraft or something. Better also means I want to feel better and be more satisfied with what I do and feel less fatigue and more sense of accomplishment. Like better is a very, very big word, not just higher performance, although that certainly that's part of it and something that we are concerned with. And how do we get better at a skill, but also just how do I feel better when I wake up? How do I go to bed at a good time and not feel crappy about it? How do I not lay there at night paralyzed by existential dread?
Right.
You know, that's
How do
what
you,
better
yeah.
means.
How do you relax and be happy and not
Yeah.
think about any of this stuff? Yeah.
Right. Right.
So I think our hope is that other people will get involved and do it with us to add to the data or the things to talk about. It just, I don't know. Maybe some of the challenges will seem appealing to you, or
I mean, long term, I think what you and I both would really like is to build a community around this idea. And we, have a small community. We have a small viewership and listenership, but the community aspect of it, if you looked at the active people in Discord and those types of metrics, it's massively huge compared to the total viewership, which I think is super promising. But long term, I think what we want is to build community around some of these ideas where you can pick a thing that you find interesting or you think would be rewarding to you, and then just kind of jump in and say, yeah, all right, I'm doing this too. And I'm going to try and get this new thing worked into my life because I think it's going to be better for me. Part of it is experiment and research and, okay, let's try this thing together and let's all see how it goes. And I think part of that is just fun. And enlightening, but some of it too, I have a pretty good idea of what getting up at the exact same time every morning is going to do for me, and I'm pretty sure that it's just a positive thing where it gets my circadian rhythm and my sleep cycle dialed in. I want that. So to me, it's just I want a really solid habit, and I want it to stick around ideally forever in the same way that the pull-up challenge did, where I still just do a set of pull-ups every morning. So I want a community around that where people just kind of come along and sign up for, here's a thing that I want to do, and I want environments around me that help push me in that direction and help get me there to where it's a new thing in my life.
I have learned so much since we started this, and I know you have too. And I really just want other people to also experience that same feeling.
Yes.
So that's why we want to do this.
I feel like the people who have benefited the most this show are you and I by a huge factor. I feel like I'm a bit of a different person versus when we started, and some of that is a new way of thinking. There have been revelatory moments of, oh, okay, I'm going to approach this thing this way. But most of it, to be honest, most of the difference has just been, okay, this week we're talking about this new thing. So I'm going to think about that and work on that and observe it in my life and try to make changes where I can. Like just the day-to-day actually trying to identify problems or ways to improve and then just working on them. Just the actual work of doing it has been massively beneficial. And I mean, if you want to experience the same thing, I guess you could start your own podcast. Like that's so far, that's the one proven thing to be really effective is to start a podcast where you have some sort of public reputation staked on this idea that you're going to be working on these things and then do it. But that's not practical. So maybe that's what we want to work on is building a way to do that for everyone, I guess.
Well, I talk to you every week, and I talk to my other artist friend every week. And just that act of reviewing and finding a new like single concept to talk about on a regular basis has made a whole world of difference.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of remember the London cabbies example,
Mm-hmm.
where I forget exactly how it's done, but I think you gave this example. You in order to train to be a London cabbie, they would drop you somewhere random, and they had to find their their way back or something. Was it?
The yeah, that I so cab drivers in London have to know the whole city in and out, down to the, take me to that store that has an owl on the side, and they got to go, oh yeah, I know what that is and I know how to get there. Like, you have to know the city incredibly well. And the way that they learned how to do it is not, to me, what I would think intuitively. I would think you, oh, my lights just switched. Sorry about that. Lighting troubles. I would have thought that the way you do that is to start with a map and sit there and, okay, memorize this street, and like logic your way through the whole thing. But that isn't what they do. The way the cabbies, like, they've kind of identified this as the best way to learn, but the way they do it is they pick one point to start and they pick one point to end at, and then they just go, sometimes on a bike or some little lightweight transport, and they just explore the route and try to figure out, okay, can I get there this way or that way or whatever. And they eventually kind of work it out, and they optimize that route, and they learn this one particular route through a city of point A to point B. And then they pick a different one and they learn that route, point A to point B, and then all the nuances of it. And they don't map out the city left to right, top to bottom. They map it out by kind of pushing their way through and finding this particular route. And then they are able to start associating things with that route. And this thing that they have in their head kind of grows and becomes related to others. And they build their map of the city that way. Is that what you were?
Yes, you did exactly what I was trying to bait you into explaining that. So
I thought so, but I
exactly,
wasn't.
yeah.
I was hoping I was jumping onto the right thing.
No, that was perfect.
Okay.
That's what's happening with all of
Yeah.
in my brain. That's what's happening in my brain. We take one concept and we try to apply it. So that's one location and then the next location, and then we just figure it out.
Oh man.
And it's changing my whole life, and I love it. And it's not like one simple trick that'll do this for you. It's just this regular thing that you just keep trying to figure out, and I'm loving it. So
Yeah.
I want other people to experience this.
I feel like, I don't know that we get that across as well as it's a hard thing to communicate, because like you said, it's not one simple trick. It's 10,000 kind of hard to explain tricks. But I mean, I keep going back to this, but me really pushing myself to get really good at a video game has translated into other areas of my life in ways that are astonishing and hard. It's hard to really get across how kind of amazing it is to go, oh, I recognize this feeling in my head. I know that I'm getting fatigued because I am fixating for like half a second longer than I should be. Like, it's hard to even explain, and that's probably worth getting into later, but there's just these tiny things that you start to get in tune with and go, I know what this is and I know how to fix it. And, or not even things like that, but just, I don't know. It's like you said, when you push your way through this one area in your life, even though other things feel totally unrelated, you start to see the patterns and go, oh yeah, I know what to do here.
Yeah. So if you haven't joined our Discord, consider it, because I feel like there's a lot of people getting a lot out of it.
Yes, but also Discord's not for everybody, and I totally get that, and that's totally fine. Just jump in with what we have plans to do, some form of new challenge / goal, whatever, every month. That's something we're going to try to do. So this month is wake up on time. Next month will be something else. We are also going to try to do weekly challenges, and we're using the word challenges again. That could mean challenge. It also could just mean experiment to find out. It could also mean here's a new habit that we're going to work on and try to get worked into your life. But we want to do really as much of that as we can. Just here's a new thing, let's do it together. So do that with us, or if that's not really what you're feeling, just
But
do it in your own way. I mean,
yeah, to me, I've been doing a different challenge for the last month with my artist friend, and I'm learning so much, and it has nothing to do with the podcast, but it's just me and someone else like-minded doing the same thing. You learn twice as fast if you're doing it on a regular basis. And I just like that concept itself. Like, forget about the podcast and our own challenges. If you can start applying that to other areas, I don't know. It's something that I never really thought about before, or the immense benefit from it before, but I'm seeing now. And yeah.
The other thing too here is that the more we've looked at these kinds of things, and the more we've really started thinking about this idea of, okay, how do I optimize the way I feel? How do I optimize the way I work? And how do I get better at certain things faster? I more and more have this feeling that there's a huge amount of space to optimize those things. I mean, if you just simply pay attention to how much time goes into the wasted time bucket, and I don't mean relaxing or, oh, I just kicked back and watched TV, I guess that's wasted time. That's not what I
Time you
mean.
regret, like you mean time you regret spending.
Time that you tried to put into the become a better human bucket, and instead it went into the pointless nothing bucket. I mean, as simple as you sit down to become a better artist and you work on that for a few hours. I mean, I'm not an artist, but I assume it's the same as everything else. It's unbelievably easy to just have a bunch of time go just be wasted. There's so many ideas around your own behavior, the way of approaching your own mind, and the way you focus and work and optimize all of there's so many ideas that are almost brand new or really recent, that haven't been explored very much at all. It just, to me, it feels like there's so much space there to really improve things that it doesn't feel like I'm even close to hitting any kind of endpoint on that of, okay, here's the perfect way of learning a new skill or building a new product or project or anything. And that's very exciting. It feels like there's so much stuff to discover and learn and understand and integrate into our lives. And that's just like a really exciting thing for me, especially considering how far it feels like I've come even just in the past year or so with where we started. I mean, we started out with the talent model of humans, right?
Right.
Which to me is it's like the earth is flat, and if anyone says otherwise, let's burn them alive type of thinking.
Okay, well, you're saying we started out with the idea that you're either born with talent or you're not.
Yes, that you are imbued with some form of magic that we call talent, and your ability to be good at things or to feel happy with your life. I mean, all of that is just something that's in you that just you kind of have to accept, and anything you do, you're just going to discover what your talent level is for that thing. That to me is like this utterly primitive way of thinking. And just going from that way of thinking to even where we are now felt like a huge evolution. And it just feels like that's tip of the iceberg kind of thing. Like there's so much more that we can do. That's just something that's really exciting to me. And I'm just really happy that we're exploring that.
For me too. Well, should we wrap this up?
Yeah, what's our challenge for this week?
Okay. For the next week, it's going to be really simple. Put yourself in a new environment. That's it. Put yourself in a new environment. I thought I had more to say, but I didn't.
Okay, I'm going to refine that a little bit.
Yeah.
We want to talk about environments next week. And we don't want to only talk about physical environments, although I do think that's super important. But even just the the online environment in some cases, or the environment in your own house, your mental environment, sort of. Like with the challenge stuff that we were talking about, just the act of saying, okay, I'm doing this new thing and I'm putting my name on a Google Doc with other people. Like that to me is a new environment in the sense that it's a different way of thinking. There's different external factors that are affecting you, your mindset and all that stuff. So we want to talk about that. But for the challenge for the week, we're going to just take it very literally, which is do a thing that you've done before, some your own hobby pursuit, something you're interested in. It could be work or anything, but do it in a different physical environment. Find some new place to be to go do that thing. Go play guitar in the park or something like that.
So for me, I've been writing every morning for about 20 minutes, and I usually sit in my leather chair, which is right behind me. I'm going to try doing that in the backyard somewhere, or just changing up where I'm doing that. I also am drawing every night at my drawing table. I'm going to try to move that to maybe some other room in my house, and maybe some weird corner. I don't know, just to change it up and see what happens. Does my way of thinking change? Is it fresh and new for me, and so I'm a little bit more inspired, or is it awful? Is it super distracting, or what?
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure yet, but I think I'm going to try to do software development on my laptop sitting by the river, maybe.
I might change. Well, I don't think I can, but I could change my room around. I don't think it's possible, but that's something I would have done a couple of years ago because I love changing my room around. But yeah, just try to change your environment in some way and then observe what happens to you. And then why does that happen to you? And if it's good, how can you incorporate that into your routine in the future?
And I wouldn't even call it a challenge. This is an experiment. It's a thing. See what happens. Observe the feelings you get. Do you relate to this thing you're doing in a different way, or like you said, does it suck?
Yeah. And just focus on that for a week.
Literally. Can I say one more thing here?
Yeah, say one more thing.
I meant to say this earlier.
I don't care.
No, just one. One other thing that I think is really fundamental to what I want us to be about is, I don't know how to say this without sounding kind of mean, but throughout the entire productivity, self-improvement area, the people on YouTube and just everything around this, there's this big incentive towards hype and towards saying, hey, if you learn when your body is at its peak performance, you can improve yourself by 100 times and be a superhuman. And there's a reason to say those things because it's really good in terms of getting people excited and getting them engaged. But if you kind of work on this sort of thing for a while, it starts to become so tedious. It just feels like every idea you ever come across is so monstrously overhyped. It's going to change your world. It's going to save your life. It's going to do all this stuff that it's just tiresome. And this sounds a bit weird because we were just talking about how doing what we're doing has been really amazing for us. But it has not been, oh, I've discovered this thing and it's changed my life. It's been, hey, your life can be different and improved by identifying all these different things and, the, what's it called? Aggregation of marginal gains. Like there's all these different things that don't mean a whole lot by themselves, but they add up to be very meaningful. Anyway, I want to really prioritize honesty as much as we possibly can around that. I mean, we get excited about stuff. It's possible for us to overhype things, but any idea that we explore, anything that we get into, I want to just really try and maintain that feeling of not hyping stuff and saying, oh, this is a miracle. You got to do it. You got to do 90-minute ultradian cycles every day. It's like the total life changer, because it's not. And it's burnt me out on that stuff. I just, that is something that I now at this point really value, is honesty around those kinds of ideas. Yeah, Pomodoro is something I really like. Is it utterly life-changing? No, it isn't. But I do like it. Like, I just really want to hold on to that honesty.
I solemnly swear to be pretty honest.
Same. Thank you. That's all I want.
No,
is to be pretty
totally,
honest.
Yeah.
That's just something I am starting to really care about. And I just want to prioritize that in every way we can.
We started this for us to be accountable for the stuff we do and really take a hard look at it.
Yeah.
And I don't see that ever changing. I mean, we do this because it helps us. And so if we're lying about stuff or hyping things up that don't matter,
right,
then I don't know what the hell we're doing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty dumb. All right. This week, go do a thing in a different environment. Wake up at the same time every day.
Yeah, it's not too late to start doing the waking up at the same time challenge thing, which has been very educational for me. But
me too.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that one in 2 weeks. And next week, we're going to be talking about the environment one.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. See ya.